welcome to this interview. What's your name and where do you live?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Pieter Hoogendoorn. I come from the Netherlands. I was born and raised in the Netherlands.
Okay, and you are here attending the first Pan-African Israel Parliamentary Summit.
Yeah.
And you've had various speakers this morning. What's your impression about the whole summit so far?
It is a feast. It is such a blessing to be here. It drags you away from the misery of Europe into the culture of Africa. And the friendship that the Africans demonstrate with Israel is pouring out. It's such a blessing. It's great to be here.
Okay, and how will you link, the godfather, as we call him, of Zionism, Theodore Herzl? He once said, and I quote, he said, "Once I have witnessed the redemption of the Jews, I will also wish to assist in the redemption of the Africans." So how could you relate this quote and what you are seeing here today?
Oh, it is so very true what Theodore Herzl said. And I think it is significant for the relation and the resemblance between Israel and the nations of Africa. Many nations in Africa, if not all, have emerged in the 20th century from former colonies. And then you go through a process of state building, of building up an economy, of bringing your social environment in shape. And the state of Israel has done the same. They emerged from a mandate, the mandate for Palestine. And in the years after the mandate, they have built a society. They have become a very prosperous and innovative nation. And African countries can do the same. So the vision that Theodore Herzl had was not only to reconstitute the homeland of the Jewish people in Israel, but as he said, he would also like to see the nations of Israel become independent, self-supporting, and prosperous. So there's a lot of resemblance. It's very well said.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And the last question maybe will be, what lesson have you learned from this conference that you take to the Netherlands, with particular attention or reference to the high rise in anti-Semitism?
Yeah. Well, what you see is, as it was expressed by one of the speakers this morning, is that the God of Israel said, when he called the Jewish people into existence, he said to Abraham, "I will bless who bless you, and I will curse who curse you." And at this point in time, when we see that evil powers are joining forces against Israel, and especially in my area, the area of lawfare, you see that the highest courts in the world that are supposed to be anti-Semitic, that are supposed to be equal treaters of all the nations, that are supposed to be just, that they fail to do so. And now the choice is, what are you going to do? Recently, the International Court of Justice has issued this advisory opinion calling for the evacuation of the Israelis from the so-called occupied Palestinian territories. Actually, it means ethnic cleansing from the Jews from their homeland, from Judea, Samaria, and Jerusalem. Now, people say it's only an advisory opinion, but already today we see nations asking for what consequences does this have now that the International Court of Justice has said that Israel is annexing Palestinian territory. It goes against the history, the facts of history. It goes against international law. And the importance now is that the nations realize that they are confronted with a choice. You choose either in favor of Israel and support Israel's existence, or you choose against Israel and call for the annihilation of the state of Israel. Because make no mistake, at the very moment that the Israeli forces will leave the so-called West Bank, Iran will step in the void. They will take over the regime there, and there will be another terrorist entity created in Judea and Samaria. It's exactly like Hamas in Gaza. There will be Islamic Jihad and other Iranian proxies on the West Bank threatening the very existence of the State of Israel.
And lastly, you are from Holland, and the International Courts of Justice and the International Criminal Court are all in The Hague in your country.
Yes.
Would you like to speak to this situation?
Yes.
And maybe call out, the hypocrisy of this court of the world in general?
Yeah. As you rightly say, The Hague calls itself the global capital of international law. All the major courts, the top courts, are in Israel, in The Hague. The International Court of Justice, the highest organ of the United Nations, is in The Hague, in the Peace Palace. The International Criminal Court, almost all the international tribunals are in The Hague. But my organization, the Hague Initiative for International Cooperation, is also seated in The Hague. And we started this organization 7 years ago. It was actually in the aftermath of the Resolution 2334 that was adopted by the UN Security Council in December 2016, calling Israel's presence in the so-called occupied Palestinian territories a flagrant violation of international law. And at that point in time, there were a few people, some friends of mine and myself, and we said, this is enough. We can't take this any longer. We must do something. And then a few months later, we founded the The Hague Initiative for International Cooperation. And our mission is twofold. First of all, we want to stand up against the delegitimization through the misuse of international law as it is taking place in the United Nations and all its organs. And secondly, we want to promote international law and the fair and just application of international law as a framework for the promotion of peace and stability between Israel and its neighbors and throughout the region. So this is our mission. And the way we accomplish it is by research, by advocacy, and most importantly, by education. What we have seen and what we are convinced of is that there is so much ignorance in the world about the history and the rights of the Jewish people. We need to train a new generation of leaders, of Christian leaders, and a new generation of lawyers, international lawyers, who will get the correct narrative of the establishment of the Jewish state of Israel, how it came forth from the mandate that was unanimously adopted by the League of Nations. And then in 1949, it became a member of the United Nations. That is the starting point. And our new generation needs to understand where the rights are and how people should deal with each other, not by fighting, but by negotiations to solve the problems. And let us be clear, Palestinian people have a right to self-determination, but self-determination is not the same as statehood. There are several ways to implement your self-determination, but you should do it through negotiations. That is the lesson that we can learn, and that is the lesson that we need to teach our peoples. Now, what I see in Africa is that there is a natural friendship and a natural longing for peace and stability, for people to prosper. And if you look at the history of the countries in Africa that became free after decolonization, then you're there, you stand on your own feet, and what do? You need help. And what happened? First came in the Russians, and they say, we will help you. And what did you get? Arms at a low price. And they stole your natural resources and made you also politically dependent. And after the Russians came the Chinese, same story. They said, we will build your mines, we will build the infrastructure, we will take, by the way, your resources, and you need to follow our advice and our instructions when it comes to how you behave in the international political scheme. And then after the Chinese comes Islamic Jihad that says, look at us, we will do it, but you need to submit to Islam. These are developments that the African nations are confronted with, and they can work together with Israel, who have gone through the same exercises, and together you can stand strong.
Okay, last message to the African leaders, especially the voting pattern in the UN has been very, very dissatisfactory.
Well, our message to all the leaders, and especially the leaders of Africa, is to unite, to stand up for Israel, to stand up for freedom. Be not enslaved by evil powers, but prosper, and God will bless you. That's our message.
Thank you very much, Pieter.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.